No one who grows up in York County ever asks about the asylum. You don't need to be told not to. You just learn. It's in the way adults go quiet when Old Ridge Road is mentioned, in how drivers speed up when the tree line thins, and in how the town itself seems to curve away from that part of the county, like it's avoiding eye contact. The building has a real name, of course. Official records call it the York County Asylum for Mental Health and Rehabilitation. But nobody uses that name. People call it the old building, the place in the woods, or sometimes just there. As in, don't go there. Or, nothing good ever came from there. The asylum sits on a stretch of land that looks wrong even in daylight. The trees around it grow too close together, their branches tangled like knotted fingers. The ground dips lower than the surrounding area, collecting fog that never quite lifts. Birds avoid it. Insects are quieter there. From far away, the building looks abandoned. Brick walls cracked by time. Windows broken or boarded. A central tower that leans just slightly, as if listening for something beneath it. Up close, it feels different. Up close, it feels occupied. Officially, the asylum closed in 1973. That's what the county records say. The reason listed is vague. Outdated practices, lack of funding, structural concerns. The document ends abruptly, with no mention of patient transfers, no closure photographs, no staff statements. That alone is unusual. Hospitals don't just shut down without paperwork. What's more unusual is what happened to York County afterward. People started leaving. Not all at once. There was no evacuation, no public panic. Families moved away quietly. Businesses closed earlier than expected. Schools merged due to low enrollment. Entire neighborhoods thinned out until only a few houses remained, scattered like leftovers. By the time I was a teenager, parts of York County felt hollow. Not abandoned, exactly. Just avoided. I never questioned it. None of us did. Until my uncle died. My uncle Raymond worked for the county maintenance department for over 30 years. He was quiet, routine-driven, and deeply private. He never spoke about his work beyond vague comments about old buildings and things people don't need to remember. When he passed, I inherited his house. While cleaning out the basement, I found a metal filing cabinet hidden behind stacked boxes. It was locked. The key was taped underneath. Inside were photographs. Dozens of them. Black and white images of hospital corridors, patient rooms, treatment wards, and operating theaters. Some were dated as far back as the 1940s. Others had no dates at all. What struck me immediately was how clean everything looked. The asylum wasn't decaying in those photos. It was functional, organized, active. One photograph stopped me cold. It showed a group of patients standing shoulder to shoulder in a large hall. Their posture was stiff, their clothing uniform. Every face had been scratched out, deliberately, violently. Every face except one. Standing behind them was a nurse in a white uniform, hands folded neatly, staring directly at the camera. She was smiling. On the back of the photo, written in my uncle's handwriting, were the words, "They were never released." That was the moment I decided to go to the asylum. Old Ridge Road barely qualifies as a road anymore. The asphalt is cracked and uneven, overtaken by weeds and tree roots. My headlights barely reached past the tree line as I drove. When the gate came into view, my stomach dropped. It was open. The asylum's gate is heavy wrought iron, tall and curved, designed to intimidate. It had been chained shut for as long as anyone could remember. Now the chain lay broken on the ground. The gate swayed gently in the wind, producing a slow metallic creak that echoed through the woods. I parked just outside and sat there for a long moment, engine running. Every instinct told me to leave. Instead, I stepped out of the car. The moment I crossed the gate, the forest went silent. No insects. No birds. No wind. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if the property itself resisted intrusion. The building loomed ahead, larger than it ever looked from the road. Its windows were dark, the bricks stained and peeling. The central tower rose above everything else, leaning just enough to feel deliberate. The front doors were gone. Only a wide opening remained, leading into darkness. I turned on my flashlight and stepped inside. The smell hit me immediately. Not rot, not mold. Something clinical. Old disinfectant mixed with dust and metal. The reception hall was enormous. Broken tiles littered the floor. A shattered chandelier lay in pieces near the center of the room. Along the walls were wheelchairs. Dozens of them. They were lined up neatly, all facing inward toward the center of the hall. They weren't broken. They weren't rusted. They looked recently used. Hospitals don't store equipment like that. Neither do abandoned buildings. As I stepped forward, my footstep echoed unnaturally loud. I froze. Somewhere deep inside the asylum, I heard breathing. Slow. Rhythmic. Not mine. It sounded like many people inhaling and exhaling together. I told myself it was air moving through ducts. I didn't believe it. I moved deeper into the building. The hallways stretched longer than they should have, branching off into wings labeled with faded signs. Patient rooms lined the walls, many with doors still shut. Some doors were scratched. Others had writing carved into the paint. Messages left behind. They said we could go home. Please don't turn off the lights. I behaved. The handwriting varied, but the desperation didn't. At the end of the corridor stood a metal door. Ward C, night treatment. Unlike everything else, it looked untouched. When I touched the handle, it felt warm. Behind me, a voice spoke. Soft. Calm. You're late. I turned around. The hallway was empty, but something had changed. The wheelchairs from the reception hall now lined the corridor behind me, pressed tightly against the walls like silent observers. Their wheels were clean, aligned, used. The metal door to Ward C creaked open on its own. The temperature dropped the moment I stepped inside. My breath fogged in the air. Ward C was massive. Rows of hospital beds stretched across the room in perfect symmetry. Straps hung loosely from the frames, some buckled, some unfastened. A nurse's station stood at the far end, paperwork stacked neatly on the desk. None of it was dusty. The top file had today's date. And my name. Inside were notes. Observations. Not historical records. Subject demonstrates curiosity. Subject believes entry was voluntary. Subject does not yet recognize admission. A realization settled over me. The asylum hadn't closed. It had been sealed. The beds creaked softly behind me, one by one, like people shifting their weight. The air grew heavy. Shadows pooled and stretched, forming shapes. Figures emerged. Men, women, children. They stood quietly between the beds, watching. They weren't angry. They were patient. A woman stepped forward. She wore a nurse's uniform. She was the same nurse from the photograph. Unchanged by time. You came back, she said gently. That's very good. She explained everything calmly. The asylum was never meant to rehabilitate. It was meant to contain. Some patients didn't respond to treatment. Others weren't sick at all. They were inconvenient, misunderstood, unwanted. Releasing them was considered risky. So the county made a decision. They sealed the building. No transfers. No discharges. No records. Families were told nothing. Staff were reassigned. Over time, people forgot. Except the building didn't. It remembered every routine, every patient, every night shift. That's why people leave York County, the nurse said. They feel it, even if they don't understand why. The figures stepped closer. Not threatening. Inviting. You're already here, she said. You've always been curious. That makes you perfect. The lights flickered on. The asylum felt awake. I don't remember leaving. Sometimes, late at night, I hear breathing that isn't mine. Slow. Synchronized. And now I understand why nobody lives in York County anymore. Because the asylum is still open. And it's always accepting new patients.